Welcome to the My Journey podcast, the place where I document my freelance journey, and with the help of my good friend Tom Scott, we discuss a whole range of business related topics. We do this by randomizing subjects, interviewing incredible guests, and answering your questions. But as ever, we start by catching up on what we've been up to since we were last around the mic. So, Tom, what have you been up to since a fortnight ago?
Since a fortnight ago. I'm off the back of the exam, which I spoke about last time.
Yeah,
I had a lovely week off, absolutely lovely week off. I know that sounds weird considering I was off for God knows how many months, but yeah, great time off. Little trip away to Centre Parks, trying out my new GoPro. That was good. Got some good 4K quality. Well, I say GoPro, cheap GoPro. Um, but it's about 30 quid off Amazon. It's classed as one of their best sellers, and I would 100% recommend. Only issue being getting the videos from my camera to my iPhone has been a pain.
right, okay.
It was memory card from the camera to the laptop to Google Drive to my iPhone to find out it's in the wrong format. So it just the video sits as a standard image to then get a converter app on my phone to convert it to then save it back into the photos on my phone to then have the video, which is all well and good until you have 50 videos
Yeah.
and it takes a bit of time.
This is the
But
issue with
yeah,
Apple. This is the issue with Apple. They
yeah,
try and restrict you to what you can use and
just trying to
in,
make things as
incompatible with everything else, unfortunately.
yeah, that is the issue. Small gripe with Apple as well. There's been a new iOS update out for probably about a week, 2 weeks now, and
Right.
my phone tells me every night it's going to install it, and every morning I wake up and it's not installed. So I don't know what's going on there, but I'm now at the point where I'm adamant I'm not going to manually install it myself. I'm going to make the phone do it. So I'll hold out until then.
And you've been up to, you say you've been doing the filming and with the GoPro and stuff. I saw you'd got a new
Yeah.
desk as well. Ah,
Yes. Nice wooden desk to fit in with a colour scheme going on in the rest of this room. But two reasons for the desk. One was with everything we've been doing, I kind of wanted a nice setup. It was a nice little space when I did have a desk here for a small amount of time to just come get away, just use
yeah.
that. That's your space. You leave everything there, better than the dining room table. And then also from Monday, we're working from home some days a week now in the
Right,
office.
okay.
Um, Alternate on and off. Don't quite agree with the schedule, but that's that's enough on that one.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll get very used to me messaging saying I'm in the office today. No, I'm not tomorrow. Then I'm back. No, I'm not. And I've said I'm going to turn up on the wrong day, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's how it is. But yeah, new desk means more space to just crack on with some editing, really, which is the only other thing I've really been up to. Bit of filming, bit of editing, and hoping just to keep progressing with it.
That's good. And I know it's something you've mentioned before about wanting to get into like a bit more editing and stuff like that. And like we've said on the podcast, we can only really heed our own advice, which is to get better at stuff. You just got to do it, and you just got to crack on and give it
Yeah,
a go. So yeah, it's good to see you doing that.
yeah. Well, that's the thing now. It's like with everything we've been doing since June is when we actually
Yeah,
started. Um, we're nearly in October, so I'm classing that as 5 months of using editing software.
yeah.
So moved from iMovie to Shotcut, and I'm still looking at getting a whole Adobe package. So I'm
Right, okay.
hoping come next June I can actually put on a CV. I've got the year of using software as editing because that can only help in the future if I actually move into something like that.
Yeah, it'd be interesting if anyone who's listening's got any experience of using any of them platforms, if they could let us know which platform they recommend, a different, especially for different budgets as well. Because I've looked at editing software before, and it's just been like for little clips for social media, nothing too crazy, but
Yeah,
it can get quite expensive. So if anyone's got like budget versions that they recommend, that would be really cool to hear about because I think there's definitely a demand for it out there. So if anyone's got any experience.
yeah, please, yeah, budget and also the strain that it takes on your laptop as well. Because some of
Yeah.
them, when you are rendering videos, does take a big strain. I've had it once or twice where the software's crashed just because my laptop just can't handle it. So the best of both worlds for that. Yeah, it'd be great to hear.
Yeah, definitely. Talking of YouTube, I've been trying to step up my YouTube game a little bit. We have this episode of the podcast will go out on my YouTube channel, then my solo episodes, which are more tailored towards YouTube, but you'll still hear them in audio version. They go out, and then I try and do one other video as well. So far I've covered, I forget what I've actually covered: business books, Gymshark's, Rise, and then this latest one is about whether or not the Tories are trying to annoy you with their marketing tactics. I try not to get political in it, but it's yeah, I'm really enjoying it as well. Like, we're doing the Tom and Matt take on stuff, which is really fun. But that from like a business and like just picking up cool stuff that I see and diving into it is really fun as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could do some editing software for that, definitely.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Well, it's been entertaining watching some of them. I haven't seen the latest one, but I've enjoyed everything else you've put out so far.
That's good. That's good. Well, if you've, I'm going to start bringing it into the newsletter as well. I think I've not really got at the moment in the newsletter. There's the blog, the podcast, my like a bit of an update on where I'm at, and then news. I'm thinking of bringing in if I can keep it up, bringing in a section for the YouTube, for my YouTube channel as well, to try and give it some more exposure. But yeah, it's. I just love doing stuff like that, you know, like the like random bits, you know, like spotting stuff, which I think we're going to come on to at the end as well. This episode, at the end of this episode, we're going to recommend a couple of things we've seen that we think everyone else should be checking out. So they're the bits I love discovering and reading about and watching and stuff. Is really good. But yeah.
I would say from your newsletter as well, the one bit I do really like is, was it classed as a news section that you were just on about? But your things when it's like, this is what's happening with Facebook. Here's something from Twitter. Like, them changes. Like, because the thing is, I don't see them anywhere else. Not like I actively look for them, but it's not something that's directly in your face.
Yeah. Just like the small changes. So what I do is it's a section called News in 5, and I go through, like, I get loads of different newsletters and emails and stuff like that, like daily updates or things like that, and I just go through and pick out the 5 top news stories from the last month that I feel are most relevant to probably small business owners, is the target audience for that newsletter. So I kind of think, if I was a small business owner, which of these would impact me the most, and then pick them out. I'd say about 3-4 months ago, it was dominated by Twitter. At the moment, it's Facebook who's dominating the news section. They seem to be bringing out lots of little updates and stuff that'll be really relevant to people. But yeah, I think it's my newsletter, I would say it, but I think it's quite a useful little tool because I pull out interesting content, share my views on things, my input, and just the actual news, you know, stuff that's not my view on things. It is just what is happening. But yeah, just one last quick update from me. Obviously, in the last episode, the solo episode, I talked about onboarding new clients, and that's kind of influenced the topic that we're going to do today, which we'll get onto in a second. But it's quite interesting because this week I've had some more work come in, and it was from none of them 3 sources. It was kind of a new source, which I thought it was worth just bringing up for anyone who has listened to the last episode. It's current clients like asking for more work, more stuff to be delivered. So I've had 2 or 3 clients this week, I think, email me and say, love what you're doing, but we also want to do this as well, which is a great source of new business as well. So if you've listened to the last episode, that's a 4th way to build your client list almost, but build your workload and as a freelancer. So just thought I'd drop that in.
Yeah, because it's been, especially if I look back over the past 2 or 3 episodes that we've been recording, it sounds like each time there's more and more work that seems to be coming to you. Like, I don't know. Obviously, since we're doing this catch up, you kind of get that, but it seems like this has been one of the busiest times for you? I know I don't want to say recently because of everything that's been going on, but I'd say definitely there always seems to be something new kind of now that's coming through.
Definitely, I'd say I think this is probably one of the busiest new business periods in my freelancing career so far. I don't think it's the busiest I've been in terms of the amount of work I've got, but in terms of
Yeah,
new clients coming in and potential clients, the thing that is frustrating is that some of them are taking a bit longer to go through the pipeline at the moment because of
yeah,
the situation we find ourselves in.
hmm
Funds are an issue, so people are really keen to get going, but it's just taking probably something that would normally take 2-3 weeks to get signed off is maybe taking 2 months. So some of the
okay,
people I'm talking about have been on that journey the whole time we've been talking about this, but I am still getting new bites as well, so which is really good. Yeah.
that's good then. And it wouldn't be a client update without me asking, how's the potential big client going?
No news on that at the moment, unfortunately,
No news.
but I have spoken to somebody else who's doing some work uh, with them,
Okay.
and their stuff seems to be progressing, which is quite promising because um, without going too much into it, there was basically a brief put out, and you could try and hit the brief, and I couldn't hit the brief, but I'd come up with something that kind of ran alongside it. So I've pitched that to
Yep.
them. So I appreciate it's not the top of the list because they wanted this, but I know somebody who is
Yeah.
delivering. He is part of a team who's delivering what they actually asked for, and theirs is
What's that for?
progressing. So it's good to hear that because I think once that's kind of
Okay.
started moving along, they might come back to my bit
Yours can
afterwards.
hopefully.
But yeah, I've had
Yeah.
contact with them, but nothing's really changed. But I will
Yeah. All right.
keep updating.
Yep. And I'll keep asking.
It's gonna be really awkward when I get that phone call where they say we're not doing anything anymore, and I'm like, just ask this week, Tom. Don't ask this week.
So I should to ask what does brush under the carpet?
But yeah, no, I think that's good. Good catch up there, and we'll get into
Yep.
today's topic, which is a little bit different. But we had discussed this on the last podcast. So yeah, we'll see you on the other side. So normally at this point in the podcast, we randomly generate a topic for us to discuss. But as we've said, we're always looking to hear from you guys, and we have on this one. At the end of the last podcast that me and Tom did together, you might remember us saying we were looking to do some kind of debate around a topic, and we think possibly not the perfect topic, but it's possible to do it with this one. So we are going to do a bit more of a debate style on today's episode of the podcast. And the topic we've been suggested comes from my last episode where I said like your network is how you get a way to get new business, and I said but I wasn't a fan of networking necessarily. So somebody said I'd love to hear why that is, who'd listened to the pod. So I said, okay, fine, we'll dive into that. So what we're going to do is me and Tom have done a little bit of just general research into networking, and we're going to take a side each. In a minute, Alexa is going to, oh, she spins it off, sorry. I was trying not to set it.
It's 12 degrees Celsius.
Set like her off by saying her name, but we're going to get her to flip a coin for us, and then that will decide who gets which side of the argument. So you're obviously aware that I'm not a fan of networking, so I'm kind of hoping to be against networking, but I think it'll be a challenge. It'll be an interesting challenge if I get four. Tom, we were discussing before we came on, said he's kind of in the middle, but would probably be more against than for. So we're probably both after that against. I'm going to let you pick whether or not you want heads or tails.
Okay. So how are we doing it? Are we whatever it lands on that person's picking, or
Yeah.
are we doing it? You're doing it like that. Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if it was assigning like 4 to heads and against the tails, and then
Well, you pick which one, and then whoever wins the toss will get to pick.
okay. I'm gonna go with heads.
Okay, again, heads, so I've got tails. Alexa, flip a coin.
You got tails.
Tails. I'm gonna. I've got some stuff I want to get off my chest. I'm going to go
Okay,
against.
you're gonna go against.
I'm going to
Okay.
go against networking. So, do you want me to start, or do you want?
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, just before you start, we're kind of doing this as obviously, if we have our own personal views in this, then yeah, kind of chuck them in. But hopefully, we can try and maintain a for and against, even if we slightly disagree with it.
Yeah, I think we'll probably come to a
Um,
point where it just becomes a bit of a discussion, but we're going to try and stick to for
yes,
and against as much as we can. So, I will start off by saying I'm not against networking in terms of meeting new people and building your network. I am partly against, careful not to completely slam it, but structured networking events within the business community. And I'm just going to start off with one reason why is that I feel it's you're either a part of the club or you're not part of the club. And if you're part of the club, part of that networking group, you will get the business. But if you're not part of that group, you don't get any of the business, which I understand is kind of the premise. But you're also expected to only give business to people within that group. So I know a few designers, but if I'm part of a networking group, I'm expected to give the work to the designer in that group, no matter of their ability or how well suited they are for the job. I have to give it to that person in order to receive the work back, not giving it to the person who I think is best suited, who isn't part of that group. So I hate the fact that it's a bit of a club. That's one of the reasons I am
yeah,
against networking.
against it. Okay. I mean, I'm going to obviously completely flip that on its head before I move into another point of, well, the pro of that is because you know them people, you can almost rely on that type of work coming through. But the same thing of that idea that people like doing business with people that they know.
Yeah,
So if you know someone and you're happy with that, you've already got that part there. So if you're wanting to do some form of business with someone, you already have the person in the back of your head. You already feel comfortable with them because you're meeting them up, either if it's different events or you've just met them before. So you've got that network already built with them. I would say that's a good pro for that, really.
yeah, that's a good counter argument. I'll give you that one.
Yeah. Another pro of it, a lot of mine is as for the network side of stuff is as if you was to be going full on to like some form of networking event sort of thing. I know there's different parts of networking in general,
Yeah,
but one definite pro for it, I would say, is it's just that it's getting you out. Like it kind of breaks up that little routine. And like, I mean, even if you are doing it all the time, it either gets you out of the routine you're in, or it gives you that sort of structured routine, depending on which way you are looking at that. But it's something, especially something we've spoke about before. It's getting you out of that comfort zone. It's going and doing that face to face of meeting new people, which hopefully would push you as a person, get you more comfortable. So once you're then in that place, it then potentially becomes easier where you're not just trying to sell something, but you can openly just say to someone, look, I can do this for you. Would you like this business?
yeah, I would accept that. I would say that in my against position is that my experience of people who are in the networking community, it almost not becomes an addiction, but they feel that they can't not go. They have
Yeah,
to go for whatever reason that is. I've tried to book meetings with people and they've said, no, I've got to go to this networking event. It's a bit like a cult sometimes. Like you've got to be part of it, or else you're not part of it. And I think the issue some people might fall into is finding that they've got confidence within that specific environment, but they're not building wider confidence within. Like they're fine talking to the people at that networking event, but if you put them in a general networking event, they might not be as good at it. So my next against point is cost. It can rack up massively. Just looking at two of the big names, I'm not going to name them, but people who are in the business world will have come across them. One of them has a from what I can see online, £435 membership fee a year plus meeting fees. So for that £435, you don't actually get to go to any of the events. You still have to pay for every event on top of that. And if you don't go to the events, you can lose your membership. So you have to pay the extra membership fees. And the other big one is about half the price of that. It's £240 a year, and the meeting fees again are £5. So I think it is very much made out that they're doing you a favour, but at the end of the day, they are businesses, some of these big networking events, and their business is getting people in a room. They will say their business is to help your business, but at the end of the day, it's not. It's to make them money. And I feel it can get quite expensive. And when you're a new small business, I went to one of them where that top price one, I went to one of their meetings within my first couple of weeks of starting my business. No money, not signed a client yet, and I'm being faced with £435 a year plus £10 a meeting fee. So that's another 520 quid. So you're looking at 950 quid across the year just on networking with no guaranteed return. It can be quite daunting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I was to throw my thought back at that, because you're paying that cost to obviously be in that room, which could hopefully either get you business from directly within that room, or if it is based off, like if it is meeting people who could then potentially refer you on to somewhere else, depending on what you price your product or service at, that cost could quite easily be, if you're there for a month, even though you've paid for that full year, you could potentially cover that cost almost immediately.
Yeah.
Because there's then people in that room and it's getting you there. Because there's then people there, instead of you just aimlessly trying to walk around somewhere and get some attention, you're paying to be in that room that's already full of people that will talk to you.
Yeah.
So your cost there could be just absorbed almost immediately, depending on your price structures and depending on how fast you can make your sales.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'll take that one.
And yeah, I'd say another 4 as well is, say if you used to go to multiple of these events and you either start crossing paths with people or you go to enough where you start becoming a name there, if you can really push and shine yourself as being almost like the expert in what you are doing, that then can start to open you up. So people want to come to talk to you because they know you're the best at what you do, which could then hopefully lead to other things or potential sales. And that might also mean that if someone sees that you're going to an event, they might then go to that event just to come and speak to you if they can't get in touch with you any other way, or if they've heard that, there's this big marketing expert that's at an event, I need to get there to go speak to them. Don't know exactly who it is, but I'll obviously look around and go from there. It's pulling them people to you just from you, with you continuously going and showing your worth and showing what you can do.
Okay, yeah, I would agree with that, and I'd say the potential con of that though is that if you're drawing the people, is a networking event what you need, or is it, like I've said before, about like maybe a speaking event that you run where you're the speaker? Now they're the kind of, without stepping onto the foresight, they're the kind of networking events I enjoy, where there's something else happening. So I do meals out, and go networking. It's more about having a meal out with people in the business community, and you happen to network while you're there. Going to an event where there's some speakers, you might speak to people in the cafe area and network there, but it's not forced networking, which brings me on to my third against point, which is that it is very forced and very structured. I've been to networking events and you turn up and it's great for people who don't have confidence and great for people who maybe wouldn't network otherwise. But when you turn up and you're told you are going to speak to 3 people for a minute, there's no real bond being built there, in my opinion. It then becomes a selling event rather than a relationship building event. You're just selling your wares in a minute and hoping that the person at the other side of the table is interested, and then they sell to you for a minute whether or not you actually care about what they do. And it's just all very forced, structured, and I don't think it develops proper relationships that you would get just from mingling and chatting. But yeah, that's my final point from the against side.
Final point. Yep. Okay. I'm very much again with you there. My little counter argument to that is, even though there is that structure there and it does feel that little bit forced, and you are in a position potentially where someone is just trying to sell to you and they don't really matter what it is that you're saying, that still has the potential that could spark an idea that you haven't thought of. Yeah. If you're in a position where someone's telling you about something that they do, it might not be something you've heard of before, or not something you know too much about. So listening to that could potentially start something spinning in your head of, oh, I could maybe try moving to that market, or, oh, that's giving me a great idea, or I can twist something I do to become that. I mean, we definitely know from the amount of conversations we have, we start talking about one thing and we end up about 100 meters away with a completely different idea, but it's all stemmed from that one first part.
Yeah. So have you got a final 4 point?
That was kind of my big 4, my final 4 that kind of twisted into the
that's fine.
Reverse of yours, I think.
It's interesting. It's an interesting one because there are, like, I've looked into some of the stats and there's definitely positive. When you look at the stats, you would think, why would anyone not go networking? You know, the amount of revenue these networking events claim to have built for companies. And there's some stats about filling jobs and stuff like that through networking, and how many jobs are filled through networking and that kind of thing, which I think is really interesting. My experience of the actual events, the networking events, I've never gone, wow, that was amazing. I felt that really worked. That's why I'm kind of against it. I'm not against networking, and I think going to speaking events and expos, conferences, like meals out, like business meals and that kind of thing, really do. They're much more beneficial, in my opinion, than going to a structured networking event. But I know plenty of people who swear by them, so it's an odd one.
I think it definitely boils down to quite a few things. I think one big thing is the type of person you are.
Yeah.
I think that is gonna suit you or it's not gonna suit you, but that depends on how you are. I also think it's down to what stage in your business you are, as you were saying, like when you've gone in as your first thing, you don't have the funds, it's like you're not fully set up and stuff yet. That would definitely differ for if you've been in the industry for 10 years doing that thing. And I did have another point that I was going to get into that.
I was just going to say off the back of that about where you are in your business journey. When I first started, I didn't know really anyone in the business community. So if I'd have gone to a conference or whatever, I probably would have just walked around on my own and maybe every now and then spoken to somebody who I bump into that I don't know. But because now 2 years into it, I know quite a lot of faces, I can go to an event, walk up to someone, start talking to them because I know them, like, on a friendly basis, I know them to talk to. And then they'll start speaking to somebody else who I then end up talking to and kind of network a bit more organically like that. But yeah, there are people who I do wonder how they ever do any work because they're constantly going to networking events and trying to sign people up to the networking event, and it can just feel a bit sales heavy. And I think my message is that if it's right for you and it works for you, then don't not do it. But if you're somebody who's going, it is a bit cult like, and I didn't enjoy it, but everyone was saying how great it was, and I did feel a bit like, am I missing something here? Because this doesn't feel right, but everyone's saying how great it is. And it's just like, if you're that person who's starting out now and you're going to these events and thinking this is just not for me, but everyone's saying how great it is and how much I need to do it, I'd just say don't worry about that. Like, find something else. Like, at the moment, it's a lot harder to network on them, but there's loads of great events happening online that you can jump on. And I always think, when I go to an event, I'm always thinking, what's the thing that even if I make no networking contacts at, is there something else I'm getting out of this? For the ones, there's like a curry event that I used to go to, I'm going out for my tea. Worst case scenario, I have a nice meal out. Best case scenario, I make a new contact. If I go to a speaking event, best case scenario, I get to meet new people, make new contacts, and hear a speaking event. Worst case scenario, I sit and hear a great speaking event. That's why I like them, because you never lose out on them.
Yeah.
There's always something to take away, and it's not sitting down opposite somebody who you have no affiliation with or no need for, and being sold their services for 2.5 minutes or whatever it might be.
Yeah, no, I'd completely agree with that.
I think what I'm going to do is put out a poll on my social media, maybe a couple of days after this has been out, and then see, can I get a gauge for what everyone's thoughts are on this, about whether networking's a good thing or a bad thing, whether they're for or against it. So obviously people who don't listen to the pod might jump on that, but if you do listen to the pod, make sure to keep an eye out for that and vote and let us know what your thoughts are on this. Is there anything else you wanted to say before we round off?
No, my final point was kind of around some of the other stuff that I was saying about, like, where you are, what type of person you are, but what you're selling as well.
Yeah.
Like them sort of events, I feel, are kind of tailored to certain services and products. Not all the time at all, but I feel like there's certain products you could be selling that turning up to that type of event might not work out as well for you as something else.
On that point, just very quickly, you need to find the event where your customers are, and the place where your customers are might not be at a generic networking event. You'll find in a networking event there's lots of business service providers, lawyers, accountants, that kind of thing, go to networking events because everybody in the room needs a lawyer and accountant. Whereas if you're a specialist drill supplier for a specific industry, your client probably won't be in that random room of 20 people. So definitely have a think about what it is that you're selling and where them people might be. But stay tuned for the last bit, where we're going to talk about some things you should be keeping an eye out for and checking out. So this time around, to round off the pod, we're going to be sharing a couple of things with you that we've seen and we think you should check out. We always try and vary this last bit to keep it fresh each week. And this time it's going to be like, I think, like, is yours like a marketing kind of thing you've seen, Tom, that we think is quite cool for other people to see? Mine is, if you've part of my newsletter, you will have hopefully already seen this. This is so good that Tom sent it to me ahead of me sending the newsletter out and was like, you need to see this, because normally I send stuff to Tom that I like, and he was like, you need to see this. I had seen it. But yeah, so if you're a fan of Burger King, you might have already be aware of this, but they've just kind of, it's an old campaign, I believe, that's happened, but it's just kind of been released how big this campaign was. And basically they decided to sponsor Stevenage Football Club in order to get themselves into the FIFA game. And the results of it they've just been setting challenges and stuff, and the results of it have been absolutely incredible. I'll let you go and watch the video and see some of the more stats, but just little things like Stevenage sold out their shirts for the first time in the history of the club. Like, the impact on Stevenage as well is incredible. And one other thing I noticed in the video was they're saying all about all these big end of campaign things that like the results, but like you look like some of the streamers that were talking about it, their videos themselves have had like 250,000 views or whatever, and you just think just from that alone the amount of exposure they've gained. But instead of spending loads of money sponsoring the game and being on an advertising hoarding in the stadium and nobody really taking any notice, they've spent a fraction of the money, sponsored Stevenage Town, and gained huge reputation within the gaming community and brand exposure. It's absolutely genius.
It's crazy. That's one of the things I'm hoping they continue it into the next FIFA. Because I mean, the thing is as well, because the whole ploy of it was you could upload your video and you could then get free,
Like
depending on which challenge it was you're doing.
Yeah,
free burger, free nuggets, something like that. There's a new FIFA out every year. If there's updated kits, they can kind of spin it off that. They could come up with maybe a few new challenges, but they could definitely keep that going for a while.
It's just like what I loved about it was showed that even the big brands are trying to think of more effective ways of, more cost-effective and creative ways of building their brand. And at the end of the day, I think you can spend as much money as you like, but if you're not creative, it's just going to blend into the background. I've always said that I think just paying for an advert in like a paper or a leaflet drop or something like that isn't worthwhile. But if you can do them things in a creative way, it becomes a lot more worthwhile. And I'm gonna promote social media because that's my job. But at the end of the day, that campaign has become successful because of the sharing on social media, not necessarily traditional platforms, but like Twitch and stuff like that. And then them releasing the campaign review recently has meant that everybody else has now seen Burger King.
Yeah.
And if you did a really creative ad in a print, let's say in The Guardian or something like that, if you did a really creative ad in there, you would still get loads of exposure through social media. I'd argue most of your exposure would come through social media because that's where people actually share the stuff that they like and it becomes a viral hit. But without that creativity, you're never going to get that extra boost from it all. So yeah, an incredible campaign. If you search for Burger King Stevenage, it comes up on Google, and there's a little video on YouTube that just kind of explains what's been happening with it all. But yeah, really cool campaign.
Yeah, definitely. It's good. It'd be good to look at. My mind was just wandering as you was talking about, say if it was an ad in the paper and how you'd make that creative sort of thing. And I don't know why my mind went to this. It does random things like this sometimes. But all I was picturing was a window repair service that had bought an ad, but for the full spread of the full page of the paper, that looked like a cracked window. So someone opens it and they're like, "Oh, what's happened to the page?" sort of thing, and then realise it's for like a window repair thing through. That was like where my mind went as soon as you said try and think of something creative for that sort of thing.
It's just doing something different, isn't it? Because if you did like a window repair company, and I have a picture of nice windows, say the name of the company, here's the services we offer, here's our number, here's our website. That's as far as that's going. But if you can create something that's a bit different and catch their eye, as I like to use that phrase quite a lot, then you'll go so much further. But yeah, over to you, Tom. What is the thing that you want to share with the listeners this week?
It's we're going back to the trailers, the adverts that we did recently. It's the new Love Cinema advert. As cinemas across the country, across the world are kind of reopening, and they've thrown together this advert with the music to the Let It Shine song. This This Little Light of Mine.
Yeah.
So there's a version of that at the start of it. It's only 30 seconds long by a band called Ren Collective. I've started listening to them off the back of this, but then they've kind of done their own mix of one as well that fits with the rest of the trailer. And the way the trailer works is it's showing small clips for all the upcoming films for the rest of the year,
Nice.
as well as throwing in old classic sort of films. Like you're seeing stuff for like the new Wonder Woman coming out, then all of a sudden there's a little clip from Hot Fuzz, like stuff like that. Like, but the way the music works perfectly in sync with, like, you've got your added, like, almost like the noise of a punch or someone gets punched, or like gunfires or explosions, stuff like that. That's mixed in with the song itself, but also you see the actual visual effect on the screen through whichever trailer it is.
Right. Okay.
And I thought it was absolutely brilliant, and it definitely spurred an idea for me with doing all this editing that I'm kind of moving into, is taking that sound clip and recreating something similar later on in this year for trailers that have come out for advertising films in 2021.
I think that's a really, really cool idea. I've not seen, you mentioned the advert just before we jumped on the recording. I said I haven't seen it yet, but I'm definitely going to go check it out. And again, it's doing something a little bit different, that normally you would see an advert for a film or for a cinema, but not all of the films together with one soundtrack. So doing something a little bit different caught your eye and then gone on and inspired you. And like you say, it's worked for everybody in the same way the Burger King one has worked for Stevenage in terms of them selling out their shirts. This has worked for the band because now you're listening to their music, and I'm sure other people are as well. So a great ad or a great campaign benefits everybody involved, not just the product or service that's being sold, is what I'm taking from this. So what would you say we have to search to find that if we just put in Love Cinema?
I would just search the new Love Cinema advert.
Right, okay.
It should be up there. It's on 2 different YouTube channels. There's the Warner Brothers one and I think just the standard Love Cinema one. Both, it's exactly the same advert.
Nice.
It'll definitely come up because it's got quite high views on it. But yeah, it's only a minute and a half of your time to listen to. It just gives you that good feeling of that cinemas do. When you sit down for that new big blockbuster film, it gives you that, because especially with the trailer covering all sorts from like kids movies to big action scenes, just everything.
Yeah. I think as well, if you get round to doing the editing thing, I'll share that on my socials so that people can have a look if you're happy to. But be interesting to see. And it is amazing what effect these, like, people think of like marketing and advertising just about making money, but if you make a good campaign, it can inspire people to do loads of different stuff. So best of luck with the editing of that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's everything for today's episode. Let us know what you thought about the new debate kind of style. We might do in the next one, we might not, don't know, we'll wait and see. And if there's anything you ever want us to cover, as always, just drop me a message at the MJ Social. If you can share this pod, subscribe to it, leave a review. We ask every week, but it really would make a difference if you've not already. We know how many reviews we've got, we know how many listeners we've got. There's a few of you haven't yet, so if you could leave a review, it would be great for us, really. We're just trying to reach out to more people, and if you've got any general feedback, like sound quality is rubbish or something like that, just tell us. We always want to make it as good as we can for you guys. But yeah, until next time, thanks for listening.